shining a light on the issue of domestic violence.
The United Nations study out this week finds domestic violence is one of the most common killers of women around the world.
Fears are growing at domestic violence shelters. Domestic violence experts in our top story.
Well, a domestic violence situation quickly turned into an assault.
The federal government calls it a pervasive problem that frequently goes undetected.
We're talking about the courage that it takes to come forward as a victim.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 7 of Community Voices. Glad you're with us. Today's a little heavier. We're joined by a guest, a Bend resident. Her name's Dawn Cofer. She spoke at our Heroes Day event back in March, pre-COVID, and she shared a story about her sister, Cassi, who was murdered by her husband in October of last year by her husband. So this is not an easy topic. You might be tempted to skip this episode, but I would urge you to listen. If for no other reason than it was a shock, as we'll talk about. It was a shock to her community there in Florida. And you probably have someone in your life that you don't even know that they're in an unsafe situation. They're with an unsafe partner, and especially now, they're locked down more or less with that partner. So it's important. One thing I want to show you before we jump right in here. Yesterday I was on YouTube and I decided to Google COVID lockdown domestic violence, and there's story after story after story from around the world of mostly women who are stuck and scared and afraid and are being victimized by someone who's supposed to love them. We've been saying this for a while, that this was going to happen at some point. The pandemic was going to lock people down. And when you have people who are locked down and unemployed potentially, and stressed and anxious and depressed and then hopeless, there's a pretty obvious outcome. So today's episode is important. We are very grateful that you support Saving Grace and survivors here in Central Oregon. And here's Dawn Cofer. All right, Dawn, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you doing this.
No, thanks for having me. Well, my name is Dawn Cofer. I live in Bend. I was born and raised in Oregon. I'm a vice president with First Interstate Bank. Even though I don't look real vice president-y today, it's kind of hot out and we're in the middle of a branch remodel.
You look great. I love the glasses.
Thank you. Thanks. But I think it's important to share Cassie's story every chance we get to do so. So Cassi was my baby sister. She was brought into my life when my dad married his third wife. That's a whole new story about my father and the number of wives. But she really my dad was really great, but her mom wasn't. Cassi never had a lot of self-esteem. Nobody really mothered her like she needed to be. She just never, her mom never wanted to be a mom. It was more all about her. And I really feel like because Cassi's mom wanted to be her best friend instead of her mom, Cassi ended up pregnant at 16, married the father, and had Emily, her oldest, at 17. And then she followed with Paige at 19. Got married pretty young. A lot of volatile years with her and her first husband. Lots of physical and mental abuse. Of course, she didn't talk to myself or my older sister about that. So the marriage ended. And she told me she met the man of her dreams, the man who was going to take care of her and her girls, a true Southern gentleman, and he was going to love her forever. Unfortunately, my little sister liked to leave out important details like, oh, he was already married and he was 18 years older than she was. And he'd been married a few times and he had a couple of daughters. So that, of course, once I found all that out, it definitely was a red flag. But he did leave his wife like he promised, and he and Cassi did get married. There's really nobody. Cassi loved everyone. There wasn't a person out there that she ever had a crossword for. She was an amazing mother. She loved all creatures. At the time of her death, She had 7 dogs, 3 cats, and 2 ferrets. And she would take in and save armadillos or anything that got hit. She always saved everything. She insisted on running the breakfast cart at the high school where she worked as a food service manager. Most managers assigned out that job, but for Cassi, she wanted to see those kids every morning and tell them how much they were loved, how great they were, to check in on them, tell them that they could do it on their next test. Really give those kids the love and support that Cassi never had when she was growing up. She just wanted to share that with them. There were a lot of little red flags over the next 17 years that her and Cassi, or that Larry and Cassi were married. One of the things that really struck me as odd was they had to share a Facebook page because he didn't trust her to not cheat on him on Facebook, I guess. So she could never travel without him. So she could never come back to Oregon and see myself and my older sister. We offered to pay for tickets. We offered everything, so it would be no cost, and he would never allow her to come. She missed both of my daughters getting married because he wouldn't allow her, because marriage is a waste of time anyway, and he wouldn't let her come. She was with him for 17 years. And I say 17 years of forgiving him multiple affairs, one of which resulted in a daughter number 5. Cassi raised her like her own. 17 years of being beaten relentlessly, and concussions, bruises, and broken bones. 17 years of being told she was worthless and no one else would love her. On my last visit, it was really funny because I took her aside, which was a rare moment to actually get her aside from him. And he seemed weirder than normal. And I just said, we went to the grocery store quick, and I just said, Cassi, like, something's not right. Like, my spidey senses are tingling.
Yeah.
And she just touched my arm and said, Sissy, you just worry too much. No relationship is perfect, but he loves me and he'll never hurt me. So that was in February of 2019 that we were there visiting her. And I'm really upset with myself for not listening to the inner voice in my head that said something really was wrong. Because 8 months later, October 27th, 2019, he shot and killed her. My niece Emily called to tell me that there'd been an argument. He'd locked up her favorite dog, chased her down, shot her 3 times. Their 14-year-old daughter was in the house, and so he went and told her that he had just shot Cassi and please call the police. And then he went out in the living room and he took his own life. Which was a coward's way out. Cassi always said how much he loved her. And one of the things I said in my speech at the lunches was, love is not control. Love is not violent or just respectful. Love is not angry, dishonest, or self-serving. It's patient and kind. It protects, always trusts. It hopes and preserves. And so I feel like maybe Cassi never really knew what love should have looked like. She left me with amazing memories of her kindness and grace. She left me with her 2 daughters, one of which is now expecting a baby. So with her boyfriend. And so she's scared to death about having a baby without her mom. So there's a lot of FaceTime going on between here and Florida. And her younger daughter, Paige, is actually looking to relocate to Oregon to get a fresh start from all this. She's really struggled. We've had to make sure she's done some serious counseling regarding the loss. She also left me, again, it's that time that they've missed their mom. They want to have a wedding, or they have a big life question, or there's just nobody there to give them a hug when they have a bad day or they're scared. And so it's hard to do from Oregon to Florida, but, we've been managing, and the girls definitely feel that there's love. As I mentioned before, she had 7 dogs. I have Kai now. Kai is a giant mix of whatever, that I flew home with me from Florida. I could have bought a first class ticket for what I paid for Kai to fly home with me from Florida. But Kai was her very favorite dog. And she'd been taken to the pound after the shootings because nobody had room or time for her. And I always joke, people are like, oh, that was so sweet of you to rescue her. And I laugh because I think she rescued me, because losing Cassie was so devastating. Having Kai was like a piece of her with me at all times. And it's funny because she left this Florida swampland and now she's like ranch dog. She helps me feed everything and really never leaves my side. But I just want people to know that I do understand why Cassie didn't leave Larry, her reasonings behind it. But I guess I just want people to know that no matter what, you have to be in a relationship where there's love and respect and not violence. And if you can't have that, then if you can't find somebody who knows that they need to respect and love and honor you and the other way, then it's not a relationship that you should stay in. You should reach out and get help. When I was leaving to go to Tampa, after this all happened, I decided I would look, because I thought, well, maybe there really isn't resources there. There were 67 domestic violent programs in the Tampa area that she could have reached out to. So I guess when I came back, it was just really important to me to reach out to Saving Grace and see what I could do or help in any way. If it can just prevent one person, from going through what Cassie went through all those years and the family losing her. So
thank you for just jumping right into sharing, so much about your sister and her life and who she was. And, clearly, you gave a lot of the bullet point facts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious about in the kind of quiet moments of your life and while you're daydreaming, how is this still almost a year later? How is it still impacting you?
Well, I'm not opposed to having a good cry. And sometimes when her girls call me and they want advice, I talk to her and I'm like, you need to please help me because I don't know what to tell them necessarily. It is really hard to mother from this far away, and it's really hard to tell them it'll be okay. I mean, it's never going to be okay. They don't have their mom. Yeah. So yeah, Kai licks a lot of my tears away. And, we just carry on. And, I just think about who Cassie was and try to honor her every chance that we get. So,
yeah. And it's, I mentioned before I hit record, this Tampa, what is this? The newspaper, their Tampa Bay Times. And it's got some lovely photos of Cassie, but it also has these happy photos of them together, which I'm sure are painful to look at. And then it also, this is how they wrote it. And I have a point to reading this, but it's talking about how she was missed at work on the Monday morning. By then, word had spread that Kegel's, your sister's husband, Larry, fatally shot her Friday during an argument and then turned the gun on himself. And then right below that, there's this happy photo of them in kayaks. And then down from that, there's a photo of them in front of a car smiling together. What's kind of a lasting, thought if you were to pull up this article, or when you think of when you would visit and Larry would be there and his demeanor, and I don't know, just make it hit more home for us than the news
okay.
can portray.
So I'm guessing the picture of the car is probably them in front of the Corvette.
It was a Hummer.
Oh, the Hummer. Well, that was Larry's new Hummer that he had to have. So what people have to understand is there's lots of pictures of Cassie and Larry. As long as Larry got his way and it worked, then there was no problem. but for example, so there is a Corvette that he bought my sister. My sister didn't want a Corvette. She wanted a Camaro, but he wanted a Corvette. I think it's just little things where it was all about him. He bought knives, he bought guns. He didn't care if the electric bill didn't get paid, or he didn't care if, Cassie had to scrounge to pay a bill, as long as he got what he wanted. And truthfully, a huge amount of my anger, because I've been angry. I won't repeat on the podcast some of the things I've said about my deceased brother-in-law, but I really had a struggle because people all over posted, "Oh, Larry was a good man. Larry, miss you, brother. Larry." And I'm like, he's a murderer and a coward. That's what he was. He murdered a woman who devoted her life to him for 17 years. She made his dinners. She did everything for him, and he killed her. So no, he was not a good man. And I think I struggle with that. There's not a lot of money in that family. And when it came time for services, I offered to pay for whatever Cassie needed. When they asked me about Larry, I made a smart comment that there was swampland. Like, I don't have any use for that kind of behavior. And so it was always a struggle. Larry didn't like when I visited because he had to walk on eggshells. It was just a really hard situation. But I think the hardest thing for me was I was cleaning out their trailer, and I found a letter. And it was a letter written to Cassie from her oldest daughter, Emily. And it was right after a really bad incident where Larry had beaten her till she had to go to the hospital. And it was Emily asking, why? Why do you stay here? Why do you let him beat you? Why do you, tolerate this? And it was just coming from a daughter who was heartbroken to see her mother treated that way. And so for me right now, it's just really focusing on, how it's affected the girls. I mean, in their future relationships. Like, that's a huge goal of mine, to make sure that this does not repeat, that the girls don't think that that's an acceptable way to be treated. But it's hard, and a lot of it's cultural, so like the fact that they had a storm cellar out of an ice cream truck buried in their backyard, that is not something I would do. So I tried not to judge based on a cultural or just that kind of level, but it was just this sheer disrespect for my sister. So and I'm a little angry that the papers did show them in happy times. I would have been, my preference would have been he was not there at all. No pictures of him. So
these are all my thoughts. Sorry, I'll just throw them all out there at once.
No.
But, I remember, maybe this is too personal on my front, but I remember when my parents were in the process of getting a divorce when I was in middle school. I wrote my dad this note, and it was like what I wanted for Christmas, like the real things, like skateboard, drum set, whatever. And then it was things like save your marriage, do this. It was like how I was trying to communicate deeply. And I remember he tore that part off and gave that part back to me, and he kept like the real Christmas list, that not the heavy stuff. And with no note back, he just gave it back. And I wonder if he was thinking, like, you'll know when you're older, you'll know when you're married, I wonder how much Cassie was thinking when she got that from her daughter, like, oh, you just don't know. Relationships aren't perfect. People aren't perfect. Almost in a way of self-preservation, Yeah.
I just think she wanted to be loved so badly and didn't see her own amazing self-worth. That's where this came from. And there had been a pattern of abuse with Larry. His previous wife when I was there, had mentioned that he'd thrown her through a wall one time. And I mean, so he'd been doing this his whole life. So this wasn't because, he got in a car accident and he was depressed, or he's now an alcoholic. He's been abusing women his whole life and gotten away with it. And so I really struggle with he's a good man. Oh, he was sad. Well, okay. It would have been devastating. It would have been devastating if he'd have committed suicide. But if he was that sad, that was the answer for him not taking my sister with him. So yeah, I do struggle with that quite a bit.
I'm curious because I think when you and I first got together for lunch before our Heroes Day event last March, you're married, and you've been married how long now?
27 years.
27. And so I'm hoping, wouldn't be having this conversation about like an unhealthy marriage, unhealthy relationships if you yourself, were in one.
Right.
But I think like you and I talked about at lunch, there's clearly like the line that I think you mentioned having early on in your own marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I met my husband, we moved in together, we got engaged, we got married, and we had a baby like all within 2 years. And he had some anger management issues, and he, a couple times kind of like was a little bit bullyish. But I just told him, this isn't going to fly. If you want to have a family with me, if you want to see your child, if you want to have a good marriage, then you're going to have to do some things, and I have a ton of respect for my husband and the fact that he went to an anger management program. We did go to marriage counseling, and, I learned that the way I communicated with him really wasn't effective. And, we worked on it, but he was willing to put in that work. Yeah. He wanted a wife, he wanted a family, and he was willing to put that work in and get the help. And I mean, we've been married 27 years, and I've never been afraid of him. I've never, we fight, obviously. We call it bickering because we're more bickery at this, we're getting up there, we bicker. And no marriage is perfect. Cassie's right. But there's still that respect. If he's having a bad day and he feels like his temper's going to blow, he looks at me and goes, I've had a really bad day. I need to go for a walk. Or, there's just ways to manage it. And I think if you're an abuser, you choose to be an abuser. You choose that life. You can make a difference. You can stop it. My husband grew up in a family that was fairly violent, and he chose to stop it right where it was, right then and there. And so I don't believe that, I'm depressed, so I have to hit someone, or I'm this, so I have to hit someone. I believe you make a choice when you choose to hit someone or kill someone.
Right.
So, I don't believe in those excuses at all.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And well said. Well, I know we're coming to, the end of our time, and I appreciate you sharing that about your own life. That you're definitely not the first person to tell me that. I feel like most of the time, less since the pandemic, but when I would be speaking to a business or something, a staff meeting, at Heroes, someone coming up and saying, my husband, once got aggressive, or this is what our marriage looked like before, and he went and did the work, and he's been an amazing man ever since. I was shocked to learn that only 5% of those programs for men are voluntary. I mean, only 5% of men go voluntarily.
Wow.
Which means only 5% of men who choose, to do that in their relationships have the sense and wherewithal to go, this isn't what I want. I need help. I need help, which is probably in some part due to a stigma. It's embarrassing. It's shameful. But if you're listening and that is you, and that you get so enraged or frustrated and you have a short temper, however you describe yourself, just don't let that sit you out or locked in this dynamic, and be that person. I mean, how much better, especially with hearing this from Dawn and what Larry chose to do, how much better to preemptively go and talk to someone about what is going on inside of you. So just to plug there.
Well, and again, it wasn't just his and Cassie's relationship. He abused every woman he'd been with.
Yeah.
that was a pattern for him. And so, everybody says he was a good man. I don't think he was a man at all. I think he was a coward. But like I said, my husband's a great man. He has been a great father for 27 years. We're expecting our first grandbaby, and I'm terrified at how spoiled she's going to be with him because I'm sure he'll buy her everything. But, he made a choice, 25 or 26 years ago, whatever it was, to have a family and to have a good life. And so again, I really am a huge believer in the fact that it's a choice.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, Dawn, thank you. Is there any lasting thoughts that have come up that you'd like to share about Cassi or?
I think that Cassi saw value and love in every person. And so I guess what I want people to know is that you have value and you are loved. And so don't let someone disrespect you and keep you from being everything you can be. So that would be what Cassi would want people to come away with it.
Learn more about us at saving-grace.org. Thanks for joining us.